My name is Jacob.
Hello, my name is Joaquin.
Man, the refugee crisis sucks.
It really does suck,
Yeah.
Jacob. That's interesting of you to bring that up. I was just
Yeah, I
thinking
don't know.
about that.
It's just been something that's been crossing my mind recently. But I don't know. I feel like obviously with people moving in countries and everything, like the process should be a lot easier, and it affects millions of people daily. But I feel like there's a point where we draw the line, and then I feel like that's children. Like I feel like the crisis. I mean, I know it sounds like, oh yeah, we have to live in this perfect world, but I just feel like children is kind of a group that shouldn't be affected by a crisis like this.
Yeah, I agree. Like the refugee crisis is bad enough on its own, but thinking of like children who are still developing and really don't understand a lot of things, who need a lot of attention, you know what children need, while having to go through an issue like this, it's bad enough for an adult, but a child, I can't even imagine that kind of struggle.
Honestly, yeah, that's like how trauma develops and how trauma starts. Is kids just like not knowing where they are, not knowing what's going on, but being forced into like some sort of situation. I wish I could think of like three in-class examples relating to this situation, but I just don't really have any right now.
Well, I'm not sure about three, but I definitely can think of one off the top of my head.
What's that?
This was in the article we read. It was about, it was called From Syria with Love, and basically it was about a woman named Amanda, and her and her family took in a refugee family from Syria. I believe, they were exchanging letters, and
Oh
these
wait,
children.
is that the New American Pathways?
That is. So
Oh,
a
I
direct
love
quote
them.
from the article said, "Later we learned from the sponsoring organization, New American Pathways, that we were from Syria, a family of 4 with 2 school-age children. They would arrive in 2 weeks." So really, it's very interesting to talk about how these kids, who are, just normal school kids, they're going to school, they're just doing normal kid things, but they have to go through this process of leaving their country all the way from Syria all the way to Atlanta, which is where Amanda and her family lives, and they're just being taken in. So I can't even imagine how to comprehend like such a situation.
Could I just say, I'm so glad that you brought up the New American Pathways.
Mm-hmm.
I mess with their message so much, just like how they're giving homes and like places to live. You know, they actually gave that family of 4 you're talking about, they gave them a home for a full year.
A full year. Wow, that's
Full year,
crazy.
yeah. It's really good stuff what they're doing. I'm so glad you brought that up.
And it's also great to see that people are really trying to help, like even if there's challenges they have to face. Like for example, I do remember some challenges Amanda faced with language barriers, but despite that, her and her family like tried their best using language apps and trying to learn their best to communicate with the family. And this really goes to show that there's like so much genuine human kindness. Like even if you don't really know exactly how to help the issue, you're trying and you're out there just trying to make a difference. And I think that's really important. That is how like we get one step closer to solving the refugee crisis.
Man, that's beautiful. Well, now that you brought that up, you kind of got my creative juices flowing, and I got a second in-class example. Actually, this one was from a class activity. Remember that one documentary we watched in social justice class?
Oh yeah, Exodus.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one.
So did I. There was one story in particular with a child by the name of Isra, and she was a young Syrian refugee who fled her home because of the civil war that was going on. Her home actually got bombed, very sadly. And she was like a child. How old is she? Around like 10, or she was something. She was very young.
Very young.
She traveled with her family, and it's just really heartbreaking to see from her perspective because she's still a child, right? She's going through all this stuff. She's going on a 10-mile walk. She's excited to go on this 10-mile walk. She doesn't think anything of it. She just thinks, oh yeah, I get to walk with my family in the rain, and she's having fun. She doesn't really understand what's going on, and she gets to the end of the 10-mile walk, and they're not even let into the country that they were trying to get into. And to her, she's just like, what do you mean? I just thought we had to do this 10-mile walk and then we'd be there. We did all the hard work, but then no, she's like rejected from the border, and she probably has no idea what's going on, but at the end of the day, that's the harsh reality, and it's just terrible that she's being exposed to it and shown it despite how young she is. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I remember there was a lot of difficult emotions felt in that movie, actually, especially Isra. Like, you said being a kid, she didn't really understand what she was going through. She didn't understand the whole refugee process, that there would be complications faced along the way. She probably didn't even know like the hardships that the other families around her were going through, because you could really see that in the movie. I remember a part where they interviewed her and her father was there, and I believe her father actually like broke out crying just because it was such a difficult issue to talk about, and she really did not understand how to go with it. She was kind of talking about, like you said, how it was a fun walk, and it was just really like difficult to see how like these kids don't even know what they're going through. Like their family and them have to face such bad issues, and the kids like wouldn't know how to overcome these like without their parents. Like imagine if Isra was alone and she didn't have any family, like she would probably get nowhere. It'd just be terrible. And I think it's important to have family with you, because that's what kept her emotions, like her happiness, going. But really it's like still ignoring from the fact that you are facing a terrible issue. You're leaving your country where you can't go back to, and you have to figure out how to survive in this unfamiliar world. It's really just an understatement of like a tragedy.
It's very tragic. She's so fortunate to have, been able to go on that journey with her family and been able to have somebody to look after her, because, a lot of children don't have that kind of stuff. They're getting separated from their families. They're, going through this by themselves, and it's a rough world. It's a tough world we live in,
Indeed.
especially for refugees.
You could say that again.
Wow, I think my creative juices are really flowing now, because I've actually got a third idea about a third example of children in a refugee crisis. This one isn't directly a refugee crisis, but I remember the video we watched. It was some sort of Spanish title, but the idea of the video was the school that they had in El Paso, Texas. That schooled a bunch of students from actually just across the border in Mexico. That really spoke to me, because it's really interesting that these children literally have to go across a country just to get to class for the day. Like, there's kids who wake up and like complain about traffic going to school, but these kids are literally having to go across an entire country just to get to their 8 a.m. class. And I mean, it's obviously really sad, but it's also really amazing that the school is able to do stuff like that. The school actually provided like different classes and different mentorship on how to get U.S. citizenship as well. So I think it's really good that the school is like helping those kids out with a process like that, especially with something as difficult as getting a green card, getting citizenship in the U.S. It's really nice that they're helping them from young. And it's also just really cool to see like all these refugee students blending in together with the students that that are from El Paso, that are just going to school like regular. It's really cool to see, because like we've been saying this whole time, they're children, right? And it's an innocent perspective. They don't really understand the struggles that they're going to. They just see them for like other kids, and they don't know like the stuff they've had to go through just to get to class that day. But they still treat them the same, and they still get along. They still have fun. They're just kids, man, and it's something really nice to see. It's something really nice about childhood. It just breaks my heart that they have to do so much and go through so much in this refugee crisis.
Yeah, in addition to that, I remember in the video, this kind of goes back to what I was saying about Amanda, how like there's still a lot of genuine human kindness when helping with these issues. I remember in the video they were talking about the students from the school in El Paso, and they were talking about like the teachers were talking about a program that they would get to volunteer at and help the kids who were coming in from Ciudad Juarez, which is the place in Mexico where they were coming in from. And the kids were like, they didn't really know how to help. They didn't know how to help, but they were just really intrigued and like really like motivated to like I believe one of the kids said, I don't know like exactly what the refugee process is like, and I don't know a lot about this issue, but I'm willing to help, and I want to do as much as I can. I find that really inspiring, like just genuine other kids who are young and don't understand the process just as much as the kids who are immigrating in from Mexico. And I just find that really inspiring, how there's just so much genuine human kindness to go to issues even when people don't know how to help. And I can actually make a personal connection to this issue. This situation is very similar, if not exactly similar, to something that my grandfather had to go through. So my grandfather is originally from Ciudad Juarez, and that's the city that these kids are from. And he actually went to school in El Paso as well. And he would go there every day, spend time there throughout the day and just come back to live in Mexico. It's just like crazy to see how much that has changed. The issue of like immigration and immigrating across countries, just not even really immigrating, just going across the country, the border. Because back then it was easy as like crossing like a bridge. But now you have to go through a whole process. There's like a lot more regulation, and like the border is heavily monitored, and it's like a tragedy. It's like people are lucky to get off just like the border from Mexico to America just once. And it's crazy to see how like much people have to struggle with that type of issue. Like it's terrible. My grandfather never really had to go through that. This was like the 50s or so, 60s when he was going to school. But yeah, just a couple years later, it's a huge issue, and it's just crazy how much like federal action is going to this issue.
Yeah, for my personal connection, I mean, after doing all these sorts of like readings and like learning like a little bit, like seeing the slide on the screen about like the documentation process, to me this whole process just seems like a bunch of luck. Like it just seems like whoever gets in just gets in out of luck. It's like, there's nothing you could do. They're not letting an infinite amount of people in. You have to work so hard that at some point it just seems like you'd just be lucky to get let in. And I kind of relate to that because my mom actually literally got into this country off of luck. She won a visa lottery. She immigrated before I was born in like the early 2000s. She won a visa lottery. And the lottery was like a ticket to America. And so that's how she got in. Obviously, like this was before a bunch of like the immigration regulations and everything happened, similar to Joaquin. But still, she just got in here off of a lottery ticket, and it just shows. I can kind of compare that to like the struggles of the people now, like getting an actual like green card or like citizenship in this country is practically like winning a lottery ticket. There's so many immigrants trying to get in, so many refugees, and in some cases America is just like not trying to let these people come in, and it's just terrible. It's literally a lottery system.
Yeah, that really speaks to me. That's crazy that your mom was lucky enough to get into that, and that just goes to show how hard the refugee process is, which brings us back to our topic, just going through this as a kid, like alone. Like I couldn't imagine a kid without parents to help guide them on this tragic like journey. It's crazy.
Wow, good conversation. Great
Yeah,
podcast.
I'm glad we
I learned a lot.
I'm glad we got to go over those points and just discuss the issues. It's great.
Lovely jubbly.